So I wanted to upload something moderately interesting for my 29th birthday. This is really all I could settle upon. In contrast to the insanely botched launch of NASCAR 21 Ignition, we are instead going to do a 25% distance race in the best NASCAR console game of all time, NASCAR Thunder 2004 for PCSX2, upscaled and played with a Logitech G29 racing wheel. And we're going to do this at none other than the game's penultimate fantasy track, Tiburon International Speedway. So this is a 3-mile, unrestricted, clockwise super speedway that really represents the pinnacle of EA's creativity during the brilliant run of Thunder games from Thunder 2002 to Thunder 2004, and you could probably even throw in Chase for the Cup 2005 into that mix. What you're seeing right now is why legions of NASCAR gamers are completely pissed off at the wide array of dismal entries in the NASCAR video game chronology over the past decade or so. The attention to detail in this game was just unprecedented. Every race began with an MRN radio call. Individual drivers were introduced, and you get little factoids about them, and they would be randomized every single race you did. There would be a national anthem sequence like you're seeing right now. During night races, there'd be fireworks. In the daytime, there'd be various aircraft flyovers that changed every track you went to. Like one track would have like an F-117 Nighthawk, another track would have like a trio of F-16s. There's a shot of the cars, being guided off pit road by an official. The pace car that you'll see here in a second is the actual pace car used during the 2003 EA Sports 500, same livery and everything. The entire starting grid is introduced and commentated. I know I've muted the volume here, but there's an announcer talking over this right now. He's introducing every single driver and where they start on the grid. It's incredible. And despite technology evolving over time, we lost all of this. No other NASCAR developer bothered to implement something like this in their game. Anyway, rolling off P24 for lap 1 of 41 at Tiburon Super Speedway. Legend AI, all driving assists turned off. Driving this with a Logitech G29 racing wheel setup. First order of business is to not talk about the on-track product, which you'll see is quite good here in a bit, but rather the heads-up display. You'll notice in the bottom left, I have a fuel gauge. I also have the ability to turn a rearview mirror on or off at the top of the screen. I don't because A, the spotter is actually quite good in this game, and B, it causes PCSX2 to drop frames. I have the option to toggle a track map in the top right, on or off, and you'll see throughout the run I actually do to check where the lead pack is in relation to my pit strategy. I also have the option of turning on or off a tire indicator, a tire wear indicator. Sometimes it'll pop up automatically to say that, hey, you're actually nuking the left front tire. None of this exists in NASCAR 21, a game made several console generations later on superior hardware. There's really no excuse for NASCAR games to have gone backwards for something as simple as what's displayed on the HUD. Anyways, enough of that. Let's move on to what's happening outside my front windshield. We're all wound up to around 235 miles an hour in the 40-degree banking corners. Yes, 40 degrees of banking. Blowing past Michael Waltrip here, fresh off his second Daytona 500 win. That one was rain-shortened. The 23 car was Kenny Wallace driving a second Bill Davis Racing entry. And I believe his sponsor, Stacker 2, ran into a bit of legal problems with one of the chemicals they put in that energy drink. And we are beginning to settle into a speedway racing rhythm here. So the drafting in this game is really, really interesting, and it features a mechanic I've never seen anyone else talk about on YouTube. The closer you get to a car, if you get a really good run on someone and you go to bump draft them, the game actually cuts your throttle as if there's like a giant force field behind someone's car. So it's more advantageous to be about 3 car lengths behind someone because the draft will really pull you along than to be, say, half a car length off someone's bumper because you'll actually feel the throttle getting cut and the revs drop a couple hundred RPM. So the difference between, let's say, Ward Burton here in the 22 car and the 2 of Rusty Wallace on the high line, it's more advantageous for me to be behind Rusty, or in this case now Ward's a bit farther ahead. It makes the plate racing really interesting in this because you can't shove people along and make some of the really wild moves you would make in, say, NASCAR 03 on the PC, or the more recent NASCAR Heat games where you can just shove the AI along. You have to be really strategic and prepare for almost like dirty air or a bubble behind someone's car, and you'll see that's exactly what I do here by tucking in behind Johnny Benson and avoiding the game, cutting my throttle, or again, running into dirty air in quotations. So pretty much this entire race, I have to micromanage the exact drafting distance of the car in front of me to avoid the game accidentally cutting my throttle when I don't want it to. If you'll notice on the left side of the screen, there's a share draft button that keeps popping up. This game had what's called a grudges and alliances feature, where if you clicked in R2, you would kind of lock draft with the car in front of you, and you would gain ally points, where late in the race he'd be considered your friend in quotations and be more willing to move over or help you draft your way through the pack on a super speedway track. But if you rubbed into someone, they would become your rival and flat out wreck you, which made short track racing completely hilarious. I don't feel the need to use either in this game. I don't feel the need to dump people, and I don't feel the need to share draft, because I gotta be completely honest with you, I never actually saw it do anything. A lot of people like to praise this mechanic in this game, and yes, it is pretty cool on short tracks because you will get into literal fights with people, and they'll spin you out, they'll like bump you or door you down the straightaway, which is really awesome. I never saw the point on super speedways. I never saw the point on speedways. I just don't use it. Looks like we're making some pretty good progress here. 6 laps into the race, we're already up to P12 from rolling off 24th on the grid. And again, it's just a combination of drafting from a very specific distance behind people, and then knowing when to pull out and fly by them. Here I got to run on Bill Elliott. I know that, okay, within about 2 car lengths, game's going to cut my throttle, so I will pull out just as we head off into turn 3, and look at that, 243 miles an hour top speed just before we dive off into the corner. Stewart's going to be a bit indecisive here and kind of chop us. I'm going to get into his back fender, but doesn't really affect either of us, and we keep going as if nothing happened, which the same can't be said about the same situation occurring in a lot of NASCAR games. Skipping ahead to lap 17 of 41, as you can see, my tires in the top right, the game showed they were worn. The lead pack is thinned out a bit. Mark Martin is your leader by about 5 car lengths over Dale Jarrett. Jarrett's got about 5 car lengths on this small pack of cars, and we are running with both Joe Gibbs cars as well as Ryan Newman on our inside. Everything's working as it should. The outside line has more momentum, so we're flying by Newman. I'm trying to conserve fuel by running in the draft rather than running out front, because I do want to make this race a one-stop race, but unfortunately, we're starting to lose drafting partners. Tony Stewart pulls onto pit road. A chunk of the lead pack has decided to pit early. That's going to put us in 4th, with the current running order being Mark Martin, Dale Jarrett, Bobby Labonte, myself at Brian Vickers' Busch Series car, Ryan Newman when he drove for Penske, and then Bill Elliott in his last full-time season driving for Ray Evernham's team. As I mentioned earlier, the game does a good job letting me know my tires are worn by automatically popping up the car status indicator screen, and then of course flip to the track map to see just how many people have already pit. Unfortunately, my plans of riding in the draft all race to save fuel and make it a one-stop race are going to have to change on the fly, because Labonte's going to go in, Jarrett's going to go in, Mark Martin's going to go in, and I know that because this game actually makes them run the bottom of the track in the corners leading up to pit entrance, showing me that they're going to pit. A lot of games don't do that, and suddenly you're just caught off guard by the AI swerving into the pits. This game also models a very slick apron to kind of simulate how there's like lots of debris and just dust on the bottom of the track. So I come in way too hot because it's tough to get the car slowed down. Like, you can actually feel it kind of wander around under you. And I pick up a 5-second speeding penalty. 70 miles an hour is the pit road speed. I think I came in at like 86, which was an honest oops on my part. I forgot how slick the apron is in this game. So some really awesome attention to detail bits. Because I have a penalty, there really is going to be a NASCAR official basically come out onto the pit stall and hold me for an extra 5 seconds and then wave me through once the penalty's served. Again, lots of NASCAR games don't model this. It's crazy that we had this 20 years ago. Skipping ahead to lap 32, because I only took left side tires in anticipation of my penalty and because I didn't need all 4 tires to get changed, I was able to cycle back out with the leaders and basically just have a normal pit stop, a normal 16 to 17 second pit stop. And again, the plan now, following, I believe, Bobby Labonte and Jeff Gordon, who is my theoretical teammate. I mean, I'm driving the Hendrick Busch Series car right here. The plan is to just save fuel behind them. There are some people who are probably going to watch this and think the AI cars are slightly too spread out and it's kind of a boring race. I do beg to differ. This is more or less what the closing stages of any sort of super speedway race looked like in the late 90s and early 2000s. For example, if you watch the end of the 2004 Daytona 500, there's really just like 5 cars that are in it. It's like, it's Junior, it's Kurt Busch, and it's Tony Stewart. And there might be, I think, Scott Wimmers in there too. But there wasn't this giant cluster like you'd see nowadays. It really is just like a handful of cars that are in it. If you caught the notification a few seconds ago, the right side tires are pretty much done, and I did take some wedge out of the car on the first round of pit stop, so it's freeing up pretty nicely for me. I don't have to put as much wheel on corner entry, but at the same time, tires do blow in this game, so it's a bit of a dice roll what I'm doing. And with Gordon pulling off early, that's going to make it really hard for us to save fuel in the draft, and we have to catch Bobby Labonte all by ourselves. Behind us, we've got 2 of the Roush cars in Kurt Busch and Mark Martin. This is back when Roush was a super team and won the championship, I believe, 2 years in a row, with Kenseth in 03, and then Kurt Busch in 2004. So there are some extremely strong drivers behind us. And of course, Ryan Newman in 5th, when he was on an absolute tear, winning pole after pole for Penske in 03 and 04. Slowly reeling in Bobby Labonte here. I think we did a better job with the handling of our car, and we're just a bit more consistent than his AI. But compared to a lot of NASCAR games, I think his AI is still quite good. You're not seeing any of the random checkups at the start-finish line like you do in a lot of NASCAR games, or the AI lifting for corners that they shouldn't. We're just driving a smoother line, and that allowed us to catch up to him. And we're going to be able to ride in his draft here for a bit. Now, unfortunately, looking at the fuel gauge, I think we're burning about 1.3 to 1.4 gallons per lap, and we've only got 6 gallons left. We aren't going to make this a one-stop race, so we're just going to have to ride and save fuel for as long as we can behind the 18 car, which I don't mind doing because we're in a really good spot right now. The pack is pretty strung out, almost like a 90s plate race. EA did a pretty good job of their Super Speedway AI, but they really don't stay bunched up towards the end of the race, like I mentioned earlier. So what you see playing out is similar to like a race at Daytona in the 90s or a race at Talladega in the 90s, where it's between like 3 cars. Both Newman and Busch starting to fall back here. They're a few seconds behind, and that can really be anything. The AI do suffer motor degradation in this. I believe off camera, a part that I skipped over, Tony Stewart blew up in front of me. So just like real life, a car that might be dominant during a portion of the race will suddenly fall off or get mechanical damage, which is really cool to see happen. And again, just not something you see in modern NASCAR games. I mean, I've been watching NASCAR 21 gameplay pretty religiously, and I've seen stuff like Quinn Houff leading at Martinsville. I've seen like Cody Ware leading at Circuit of the Americas. This game does not have that. Bobby Labonte was this good in real life in 2003, which this game is based on. And I believe he won like the season finale race at Homestead. So it ends up making just like participating in a race like this, especially at a lot of the fantasy tracks in the game, really enjoyable because the running order and the end race results, when you factor in like mechanical failures and just like each driver's individual strengths, it seems plausible. You know, it compared to how dominant Roush was in the early 2000s, to see Mark Martin and Kurt Busch running in the top 5 at a track like this, well, that's pretty plausible. That's what happened. Mark Martin was on the pole for one of the 2002 Talladega races. Like, it's obvious he'd be up front. Same with Dale Jarrett. Dale Jarrett was quite good at restrictor plate tracks in his career. It makes sense that he led the laps that he did in this race. Same with Bobby Labonte. Labonte was famously involved in the end race crash of the 2001 EA Sports 500. It makes sense he'd be running this far up here. Now, as you can see by the lap count on the screen and how much fuel we got left, we are not going to finish this race on just one stop, so we're going to have to fly into the pits here. Much more conservative entrance, just on the line of violating the pit road speed limit. I come in right at 70, and we are going to turn off everything. We're not going to repair the damage, not going to change the tires. We're going to put in just 5 gallons of fuel, and that's probably going to win us the race, as the total pit stop time will only take about 8 seconds. Guys are going to come out and check if there's any debris on the grill. There's not, and that will seal the victory here at Tiburon Speedway. Again, just a really wild fantasy track to mess around with. It's nice to run at a place like this without having to deal with iRating or safety rating, as you see in iRacing with Coca-Cola Super Speedway. And look at this. We get a pretty awesome victory lane celebration. The background's got the individual race logo. We've got a bottle of champagne that the player character is going to come out and spray. We've got Miss Winston with her very polygonal set of tits that you might get a paper cut on. But she's trying her best, and that's all we can ask of her. We've got crew members high-fiving. I think there's even like a fake check that gets presented to your driver coming up here in a second. Yep, there's the check for 300 grand, which is honestly not a lot of money for running at a track this dangerous. I think we need to have a talk. We even got a fake trophy. You know, they went out of their way to make a fake trophy for this event. And lastly, the game shows us it's not about the 300 grand that we need to talk to NASCAR about, but the most important thing is the friends we made along the way. That's NASCAR Thunder 2004.